back up, back up.
Yeah!
Woo!
Hey, welcome to Roadless. I'm Steve King, and we're working on Scott's LJ. If you're not sure what an LJ is, designation for Jeeps for the Wranglers go from a CJ to a JK, basically.
Well, Steve, technically that's incorrect. The Wranglers didn't start until 1987 with the Jeep YJ. They have continued to the current JKs, but a CJ was never a Wrangler.
And the LJ is kind of a fake designation. It's actually a foot longer than a regular TJ Wrangler. They only built them for 3 years, so it makes them kind of unique and kind of special, almost like a scrambler, but a more modern one. Today, we're putting flat fenders on here, which means we're going to take these flares off, we're going to cut this fender, and then we're going to put flat fenders on, which will give us more room for this tire for articulation, and quite frankly, we'll just look badass. All right, we're continuing on the flat fenders on Scott's LJ, and what we're doing is we've taken the external flare off, and now we've marked where we're going to cut the top of this fender, because the new flat fender sits actually on top of this, or braces under there, which ties it all together. So to do that, we're going to bring Bill in. This is his beautiful garage, so we're using his shop today. So we're going to let him do the honors. It's all marked. You get to use the power tools and make some sparks. That whole bracket comes out.
Okay.
Look at the other side.
So you can go ahead. So then go. You can go ahead and cut that up there. Then.
All right. So we've started the cut on the top of the fender here for the flat fender. What we need to do is cut down through here, and that's why we've taken off this rocker guard here, just so we can cut through. It'll make it a little bit easier. If you wanted to put the stock rocker guards back on, he could. He's got the new Smittybilts. We'll be putting those on later. All right, so we made the full cut, and if we cut everything right, we almost have this disconnected. There we go. So that's what we cut off. And I'll tell you, cutting that much fender off, that's a little stressful. And that's why the owner of the Jeep didn't do it, because we don't care. So we did a little grinding with the flapper wheel here, took that along the edge here, down into the fender skirt as well, and basically had to kind of clean this up, and we found out from doing the passenger side that we needed to grind this off a little bit, make this a little tighter so it all fit nice and tight right up against the side here. Yeah, this is a rare occurrence actually, reading the instructions. Measure a straight line up on the inner back portion of the fender, we did that. Dude, that looks good. I like that.
I've kind of changed my mind.
Have you?
I think I want to stick with the blue.
Get the welder out. So basically, anytime you have a raw edge of metal, you want to make sure you put a little bit of paint on it. That just keeps rust at bay, especially if you live in a rust belt like Nebraska. So just a quick shot. We let it dry for a few minutes, and then we'll start putting on the flat fender. So we just test fit the flat fender here, and this is what it looks like. And this is what we have left here, and this inner fender, it needs to be trimmed down just a little bit more in order for it to sit flat against the body. So that's what we're working on now. Still hitting in here.
Dude, I got a ton to take off.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot.
Because I mean, I'm pushing that fender in. 1/2 inch further than it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Why don't I take the flapper wheel, we'll buzz that down just a little bit more.
Okay.
I think we'll be able to start putting bolts in.
All right. All right, so here's what's going on. We've got the flat fender attached to the Jeep, and we've got 3 bolts in here. We've got 1 bolt in the rear here, but these bolts that are on the inner fender apron, which is right down here, we can get 3 of them lined up, but we can't get 1 of them lined up. So we're struggling to try to get that bolt lined up. And what's interesting about Jeeps is every Jeep is different. Every Jeep seems to fit a little bit different. So they even say in the instructions for these that you may need to elongate a hole, you may need to drill something out, you may need to grind something out, because every Jeep is literally different. So that's what we're struggling with right now, but as soon as we get that, we're basically done. Got a few things to button up and we'll be done with flat fenders. So we thought we were gonna be done installing this flat fender really quickly, but instead, we decided to break off the head of this bolt down here. So this happens sometimes, and you just have to remove it. You gotta drill it out, you gotta retap it, and put the bolts back in. So, unlike a lot of other shows where they would just show you that nothing bad happens, we have to take this entire flat fender off, drill this out, redo it, put it back on. So, I'm down to just a couple of bolts here, and we'll be done. So hopefully when we come back, we'll have it all back on, and we'll be ready to go. Or not, I don't know.
And now, your roadless tip with Steve King.
All right, so we're out here at Tuttle Creek, and we wanted to highlight one of the Jeeps out here in the club. This is John's JK, and this is a perfect example of taking a bone stock JK and having a blast with it and off-roading. This is just a Wrangler Sport. It's got street tires on it, 29-inch tires, no lift at all. And John wheels this thing like somebody on 35s. It's pretty impressive. A lot of people, when they buy their Jeep, are like, oh, I gotta put a bunch of money into a lift and I gotta get 40-inch tires before I'll even think about off-roading. You don't have to do that. You can take a Jeep with 29-inch tires, bone stock. The only thing he's done is put a winch on this, and you can have a blast. Some people get real nervous about it. I'm telling you, you will be amazed if you take a stock Jeep out and wheel it. And I'll tell you, the other great thing about doing this with a stock Jeep is you learn how to drive. Sometimes if you go out, you got 35-inch tires and a 4-inch lift, and it's not as difficult to wheel, and you don't become as good a driver off-road as you do if you start with a stock vehicle. So John's done an amazing job. Now he's got a lift kit for it, he's putting big tires on it, the whole deal, but he's wheeled it like this for 2 years and has had an absolute blast. It hasn't cost him any more money. So it's pretty cool. We call it the Red Rocket, and it will do almost everything out here, and it's pretty impressive. So what we're doing to wrap up the flat fender, which we did actually fix the bolt and took it off, put it back on, is we're drilling out the top of this, and this is kind of the last bit that kind of ties the inner fender to this outer flat fender. And then got some real nice button heads that will go on here. And basically that's it, it's done.
You imperfected my paint.
I can't see it.
Hey, Dad,
We can review the video, right, and find out if this was
Probably.
here?
you're missing something right here.
Because I think this was blue when we started.
All right, so that just about wraps it up. We've got the flat fenders on both sides. This one we only had to take off about 37 times. That side a couple. This is seriously though a big job. This is not your first job you want to tackle on working on your Jeep. You need some friends that know what they're doing. You need to grind, you need to cut. You got to be really comfortable with some major modifications to your Jeep. So it looks great. You've got way more wheel travel than what you had. And the way these flares are made, they're street legal because you've got full tire coverage on them as well. Join us for another edition of Roadless. Wait a minute. Did we take that bolt out?
Okay, take it back out.
You can edit that part out, right?
Yeah. This is what happens when you work on Jeeps.
At the beginning, you know those warnings at the
Yeah.
beginning of shows?
Yeah,
The stupidity involved in this show
exactly.
is purely coincidental.
We may not show all steps involved in installing. You know what I love on the LJ, and I don't know if it's the same way on the TJ, but I love this. That there's a hole there and they just start tape over it.
Yeah, TJ's the same way.
Is it? I just love that. I don't know why I find that really amusing.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Well, we got a hole there. Let's just put some tape on it. What do you think we should do about that, Phil? Yeah, fucking just put some tape on it.
Should we put black tape on it?
Not clear. I want to be able to see through it.
What do you got laying there? I got a roll of clear. Got a piece off.
I just, I'm getting ready to pack a return to Amazon.
That'll work, Steve.
Oh, that looks sharp.